Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. Okay, so hello, welcome. If you are new, if you have stumbled across my video while you're looking for Bridgerton content, let me introduce myself really quickly. I'm Crystal. I talk about romance books and I specifically have a big interest in historical romance. So I am a book fan of the Bridgerton series, so that is obviously going to color my opinion of season 2 of the new Netflix series. So let's go ahead and talk about my thoughts on season 2 of Bridgerton. So, first of all, I want to say that I love The Viscount Who Loved Me. That's one of my favorite books in the series, but it is not my very favorite. And while I do really love that book, I also tried very hard to go into season 2 without any expectations of what it was going to be. I just really wanted to sort of see what they were going to put out there, and much the same way that I had with the first season, season 1, I went into that without very expectations really, and so I think that helped me a lot because this may be an unpopular opinion, but I thoroughly enjoyed season 2. I honestly really loved it. I felt like it was super entertaining. It was very emotional. I was invested in all of the characters and all of their subplots. I loved the angst and the tension between Anthony and Kate. I loved that it was a slow burn. That is my jam. I love that so much. I felt like they had such great moments of insight into Anthony's backstory, into the whole Bridgerton backstory about what happened with his father and the weight he carries as the Viscount and the head of the family. I just, overall, my enjoyment of season 2 was very high. I really enjoyed it. Probably honestly like a 4 out of 5 stars. Like I just really liked it. I thought it was great. I loved the actors. I thought they were perfect. Kate was perfection. I think that she was so expertly cast. I really loved her. I loved seeing how she was not necessarily cold, but she was like a spitfire. She was not going to get mowed down by Anthony. I loved how she stood up to him in every single way, but I also really loved at the very end when we got to see her tenderness there. I should also say that I will be having spoilers in this entire video, so if you don't want to be spoiled, then stop watching because I'm not holding anything back. So, I loved Anthony. I loved Anthony so much. Like, honestly, I loved Simon, like everybody else, so freaking much that I also loved Anthony in season 1, but I was like, not sure how much I was gonna be invested in him as a romance hero. I really didn't know what to expect from him. And wow, I was not disappointed. Like, one of my favorite things about historical romances and about period romance films specifically are really the very small, subtle gestures that, like, convey a lot about specifically the hero and how he feels about the heroine and how much he wants her, but, like, he is trying so hard to control himself. And, like Anthony says several times, like, he wanted her and he was trying to do the honorable thing. Like, when he walks past her and smells her and just, like, you can see, like, the jaw clench and everything. The moment when they're dancing at the very end at the Featherington Ball, oh my gosh, the tension in that was so beautifully well done. When he had already had Kate, but he, like, wanted her fully, and I just was dying over the very subtle movements of a romance hero who wants and desires this woman, and he just feels like he can't have her. Like, the clenched jaw, the closed eyes. I was just like, I was here for it. I felt like it was approaching the level of the 2005 Pride and Prejudice with Mr. Darcy, the hand clench, things like that. Like, I was here for all of that Anthony content. I really freaking loved it so much. So now that you have my general opinion about it, let's talk a little bit briefly about things that I wish had been different, things that disappointed me a little bit. So obviously, the beginning of this season 2 is much different than the beginning of The Viscount Who Loved Me. Like, the way Kate and Anthony meet in the Netflix show was so much different than how they meet in the book. And I do have to say that I really enjoyed the drama that they introduced in the horseback riding scene, the mystery surrounding Kate. I felt like it was very obvious right away how Anthony was super intrigued with her and found her attractive, and really, like, she just, like, showed up in his world and he was just like who is this woman riding astride in the early morning? Very mysterious. I am very, very intrigued and attracted to her. And I really enjoyed that. It was super different from the book. And I feel like when I saw that scene, I was like, okay, clearly they're going to be taking a lot of liberties with the rest of the show. So there we go. I will say that I did not binge this all on Friday. And as soon as Saturday, I started seeing a lot of, not necessarily spoilers, but I started seeing a lot of people in the book community on Bookstagram talking about how disappointed they were after episode 3. So at that point, I had just finished episode 3 when I saw that. So I got off social media. I haven't watched anybody's content, anybody's review about this because I really, really, really wanted to have I wanted to have the opportunity to form my own opinion about this season. And I'm really glad that I did because I honestly loved it. I thought it was entertaining. It had all of the drama that I want from a period romance like that. And watching it, I just adored it. But I mean, I will say, I have a thing for slow burns. I am a sucker for that. I have a big thing for angst and tension. And it was so beautifully well done here. It was so epically drawn out. I really, really loved that. I will say that even as someone who really loves a slow burn, I do wish we had gotten to see a little bit more of them living happily ever after. Their happily ever after takes up such a short portion of the season 2 that I definitely was a little bit disappointed in that, and I wish we had gotten to see just a little bit more. But all of the lead up to that was just chef's kiss. I thought it was fantastic. Okay, so other things that I really feel like were a little bit of a miss for me in this. The biggest one, and I'm jumping right to it right away, is how they handled Penelope and Eloise's friendship and Eloise's discovery that she was Lady Whistledown. I felt like that was heartbreaking. It was so heartbreaking. I didn't want to see that. And having that combined with that moment where Penelope sees Colin, overhears him say that he would never court Penelope, just broke my heart. And you could just see Penelope just break down. And I hated that. I hated that so much. And it really, really makes me curious what they're going to do if they have a season for Colin and Penelope. How are they going to repair that? How are they going to repair Eloise and Penelope's friendship? What is going to happen there? So that was a really big disappointment for me. I hated seeing Eloise and Penelope really torn apart like that. It just really broke my heart. I felt like it was unnecessary. I felt obviously the season 2 leaned heavily into drama. And I'm not gonna lie, I love that kind of drama. I really, really do. I knew we were getting a happily ever after, so I wasn't worried about that. So I was literally eating up the drama with a spoon. It was fantastic. It was delicious to me. I really loved it. But my sweet Penelope, I really hated how they handled that at the end. And I think that one thing I think they did right about Penelope being Lady Whistledown is that they really highlighted what a crucial role Whistledown played in society as a whole. And I thought that was so interesting because here we have Penelope, who is such a she's a wallflower. She's a little, not necessarily an outcast, but nobody really notices her. No, she doesn't really have any power. She has built a very powerful persona, a way for her to have power over the entire ton. She has influence over the queen. That is incredible. And I really loved how they illustrated that and showed that so clearly, how powerful Penelope as Whistledown was. I thought that was fantastic. I thought that added so much layer and depth, especially for people if they're new to reading historical romances, or if they don't really know about the social dynamics of the ton at the time. I think that added a layer of realism, and it showed how high the stakes are for these people, because another overwhelming feeling that I had while watching this was just sadness, that so much of their lives was just determined by gossip, by appearances, by what everyone would think. And it just made me so sad, but I felt like it really illustrated how that was just how society was at the time and how crucial that was to not only their survival, but their happiness too. And I think that's really illustrated in what happened with Eloise at the end when Lady Whistledown wrote that piece about her, which absolutely gutted me. It gutted me so much. So that was something that hurt my heart. I was invested in the drama, and I'm really curious to see how they repair that and what they're going to do with Eloise and Penelope, because that was heartbreaking. I also think that I didn't love how Colin was represented in this season. He was definitely my least favorite Bridgerton. I felt like he was so boring. I did not like him at all. I did love at the end when he figured out the con that the new Lord Featherington was putting on. I loved how he figured that out, how he felt like he was protecting Penelope. Like, I really, really loved that. That was stand-up Colin behavior, but he just felt like such a watered-down character, very vanilla. He didn't have the personality that I saw him have in Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, so I was disappointed with Colin's character, and I wish so badly that we had gotten to see a little bit of him starting to see Penelope as a future partner, as his love, and not just some poor girl that he was like trying to help feel better. Like, I hated that, honestly. I hated that so much. So that was disappointing. So let's talk a little bit about the other scenes that weren't included that I wish were. So obviously one of the biggest scenes that was left out was the bee venom sucking scene, right? That is the catalyst for bringing Kate and Anthony together. That is the moment where everything falls together. That's what forces them to be married in the book. And I was curious how they were going to put that on. You know, I didn't know how, especially considering the overall feeling of this season, which felt more heavy, more dramatic, a little melancholy. I was really curious how they were going to make that sort of humorous scene. I mean, it's humorous in a way, obviously, because like he's sucking the venom out of her breast, right? Like that's humorous scene. How are they going to bring that mood in when the whole mood of the show was something completely different? It was very serious. It was very somber in a way. It was like aching, pining. Like, how was that going to work? So the scene in the show when Kate gets stung, I felt was beautifully done. I felt like that was handled perfectly. I loved the drama. I loved how Kate didn't know what was happening and how Anthony's reaction, he was so, like, clearly he's having a panic attack in that moment because he believes that she's going to die. There's so many, like, conflicting emotions there. She doesn't know what's happening. But underneath all of that, you can see, like, she is, like, so attracted to him and so drawn to him. And I just kept thinking, somebody's going to walk in, they're going to find them, and this is the moment. And it didn't. And so I was disappointed that, not necessarily that he didn't suck the venom out, but I was disappointed that that moment didn't lead to them right away starting their relationship, right? I don't necessarily love how they also had the tension between the sisters, how that was such a negative thing. And I don't really feel like this is a true love triangle, because both Edwina and Anthony, neither one of them feel real feelings for each other. Edwina wants to marry Anthony because she wants the life that he has to offer. She wants to be a Viscountess. She wants to be a part of the Bridgerton family. She is idealizing what she perceives her life to be if she marries him. She doesn't love him. She wants him to love her, but she doesn't love him, and he doesn't love her. It's obviously very clearly a marriage of convenience, even though there is hope on Edwina's side that he will love her, and she does kind of have her feelings hurt in a little bit, but to me it read more as her feelings were hurt because her expectations were not going to be realized. Her dreams were not going to be realized. She wasn't going to be a Viscountess, and obviously the added betrayal of Kate keeping that information from her and Kate having feelings for Anthony, you know, like that added to it. But I don't ever fully believe that the thing that broke her heart was that Anthony didn't love her because she didn't love him. So I really actually enjoyed the tension between all three of them. I enjoyed that very much. I felt like Anthony played a perfect pining hero. I felt like he was so clearly smitten with Kate, and I honestly loved it so much. Like, I really, really loved that. A character that I really enjoyed this season, that I enjoyed a little bit too in season 1, but this season really made him shine, it was Benedict. Benedict was honestly a very enjoyable character. He was funny when he takes too much of the powdered drug or whatever that was that Colin pours in his tea, and he's like high or drunk. Like, that was hilarious. I thought that was so funny. I thought he was very clever. I loved how warm and charming he was with Eloise, which I also really enjoyed that part of their relationship in season 1 too. I felt like he was really fantastic. He was built up to be very likable, very charming, very engaging. He had added a lot of comedic relief, which was much needed in this very serious season. But I just really loved him, and it makes me kind of hurt to think about what his character arc is in An Offer from a Gentleman, because he definitely has some villainous behavior in that book, and I don't want him to in the movie because I really love how they're portraying his character. He's very likable. He's very charming. He's very funny. I enjoyed his character a whole lot. I thought he was great. I also liked Eloise in this one. I mean, I always liked Eloise. I think that she's a fabulous character. I loved watching her hesitancy to get presented as the season begins. I loved how she didn't want to be the diamond of the first water. I thought that all of that was very realistic and true to her character. I was a little, like I said, like I already talked about, I was a little disappointed with what happened with her storyline towards the end because I just felt like it just made my heart hurt and I didn't like it. And I wanted Eloise to, I didn't want that rift to happen between her and Penelope because how are they going to fix that, right? It seems almost irreparable. So that's honestly something that I'm extremely curious about. How are they going to repair that relationship? I know I've talked about it a lot, but I literally just barely finished the last episode and it's heavy on my mind at that moment. Whereas the romance portion of it feels very resolved in my head. It's something that I enjoyed. I loved watching it. I loved the tension. I loved their sex scene. I thought it was beautifully romantic. It was the perfect tension dissolver, it felt like, because you had this tension just amping up the whole entire time with all of these longing looks and this slow burn, and then they finally have sex and it was dissolved and it was a good time. I really liked that. I've heard a lot of criticism. That's the one thing that I've heard, is that people are disappointed by how little sex there was in this compared to the first season. But to me, it worked really, really well because it really highlighted the forbidden element of their relationship, and also it highlighted how much they wanted to do that. Like the tension in this movie, the romantic tension, the sexual tension was so high. And I'm a huge fan of that. I love that. I love a lot of tension in my romances. It's something that I always look for, and if it's absent, I always rate that lower because that's what I want. I want to see that driving tension, and I felt like that element of this season was perfectly executed for me. So yeah, I loved that very much. I do wish the final scene, when Kate hits her head and she is, she's injured, I missed a little bit of like a caretaking scene in there. I was hoping Anthony would not just sort of abandon her, even though like you see so clearly that's how his brain is working, that's how his heart is working. Like he doesn't want to endanger her anymore. He's always feeling like everything is his fault, and but it was a missed opportunity for a great sickbed scene, which I know it would have been amazing, and I honestly, that was a little disappointing for me too. I wanted a great sickbed scene. We didn't really get a lot of him caretaking or spending the night with her in the book, when Kate is so afraid of the thunderstorm, and Anthony sits with her, so she's not afraid. I wanted to see a little bit more of that in that scene too. Like, I really, really, really would have liked to see Anthony's care and concern a little bit highlighted more in this, but especially for Kate, instead of it just relying on he wanted her, but he couldn't have her. Like, I would have loved to see a little bit more of his tenderness, which was evident in the book, and it was sort of missing in the second season. And I feel like some other things that I was really glad. I'm really glad they had Newton in there. I loved the ending scene with Newton and how Anthony was saying how he never listens to him. Like, I just loved that Newton was in this season. I loved it so much. The Pall Mall scene was perfection. It was so good. It was so fun. The first 3 episodes were, I felt like, pretty much perfect. There was great banter. There was a lot of great characterization moments in there. It was fun. It felt a little more lighthearted. It was really setting the stage for the book that we knew if you were a reader. Like, it was setting it up pretty good to be something that we really wanted. And I definitely feel like when I heard people say that they were disappointed after episode 3, I could understand why, because a lot of what we wanted that was in the book was absent in the rest of the episodes. It really felt like this season was a huge departure from the book. Like, there is little to nothing after episode 3 that is in the book. It felt really very much like they took the characters and they were going to design their own story arc with just tiny little hints of what happened in the book. And I feel like it worked, but it works in a way that is not it's not true to the book at all, really. It's definitely not. And I can see how that would be very disappointing for a lot of readers. And honestly, it disappointed me a little bit too. But I still feel like as its own thing, season 2 was still super enjoyable, super fun, a really, really dramatic period romance that I loved. But like the book, where is she? she's not in season 2, hardly at all, right? Like very, very, very little of the book is in the rest of that. Pall Mall scene, one of my favorite scenes. I adored it. I loved that she had the mallet of death. I feel like they captured that spirit of the Bridgerton family so well. This family who are like, even the girls and the boys, like they see this as a death match. Like it's very serious. I loved how Kate took it very serious. She was super competitive. She was going to show Anthony. It was a beautiful scene. Something that I think that this show did very well, actually, is highlight how Anthony actually felt from the death of his father. I did like that in the show, Anthony was there as his father died, whereas in the book, it's Daphne who lets him know that he passed away from a bee sting. So I really, really enjoyed that we got to see that scene actually happen. It was one of the most heart-wrenching, gutting scenes that I have ever watched in my life. I felt like it was beautifully done. It really showed how Anthony had to rise up, like this child, this 19-year-old child, how he was now the head of the family. And that moment when Violet is giving birth to Hyacinth and the doctor says, okay, you must decide. Like you could see the weight of that on Anthony. And I think that was such a great moment to include because that shows really his motivation for everything. Everything that he does in the second season is always so motivated by doing the right thing by his family, doing his duty. And I felt like those two scenes, Edmund's death and the birth scene with Violet, were just completely crucial to this. I do wish that it was a little more clear that the reason why Anthony didn't want to marry for love is because he was afraid that he would die young, that he would leave his wife in a similar situation that Violet was left when Edmund died. I wish that that had been sort of, the dots had been connected a little more clear because that's so clearly his motivation in the book that I was hoping that would have been, you know, the dots would have been connected a little bit better. But I mean, those emotional, heartbreaking scenes were some of my favorites. I feel like the spirit of the Bridgerton family overall was captured very well in this season. I think that we got a closer look at each member of the family. I really enjoyed that. Also, the Featheringtons. Like, when the new Lord Featherington comes in, and he kind of starts, like, making moves on Mrs. Featherington, even though he's engaged to her daughter, I was like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen? And then I was like, my disdain for Mrs. Featherington, Lady Featherington, was like going down the whole time. And then that final moment when she like turns the tables and has it all entwined for Featherington, she makes him go back to America. Like, I was like, this woman is a freaking queen. Like, she is, like, talk about a villain arc, right? Like, I honestly really loved that because I loved how she said, because I'm a mother. Like, I don't know, man. I was not a fan of her the whole time, and then that happened, and I was like, okay, respect, you know? I was into it. All right, well, I know I could have a lot more to say. This is really just sort of my first impressions. Overall, I really enjoyed the second season. It is nothing like the book that we love, but as its own piece that is just inspired by Anthony and Kate's story, I think that it was still a really entertaining version of their story. It's not what we love in the book, but I still really enjoyed it. I had a good time watching it. I loved the romance. I really liked pretty much, not everything about it, but I really enjoyed almost all of it. I thought it was a good addition. I would rewatch it. I'm very excited for a future season if they have one, and yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good time. So if you have also watched the second season of Bridgerton, please let me know your thoughts on that down below, especially if there are specific things that you didn't like or that you did like, maybe that I didn't mention. I would love to hear that because I feel like I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg, but I don't want this video to be too long. So overall, 4 out of 5 stars. Enjoyed it. Nothing like the book, but it was still in its own rights very good. Thanks so much for watching, my friends. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.